Welcome into Up in the Rafters, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this college basketball season. I'm Taylor Vippolis hosting this, and as always, joining me, he's a national champion, Final Four's most outstanding player, a Carolina basketball legend, Joel Berry. Joel, before we talk about this game, how do you feel about California in the ACC? Because it's still a bit jarring for me to turn on the TV and see, the midweek Wednesday game, Cal versus North Carolina in a conference type setting.
I'm right there with you. I think everybody might share that same feeling about it. I understand the direction and what's going on and what's at stake and what the conference has to do to stay up to par with all the other conferences. I get it. I just don't think it's sustainable. I just been running through it and kind of listening to some of the coaches in the ACC talk about it. And man, I just don't know if it's sustainable, but I'm like you though. I just think it's just weird. Simply put.
It feels like I have to check my eyes a couple of times when I'm looking at the TV and seeing some of the matchups where Carolina's in this stretch of 4 games right now where it's SMU, NC State, Cal, and now Stanford's next up on the schedule. And now that's your January ACC basketball slate. But against California, Carolina wins big. They win by 26, 79-53 from the Dean Dome. UNC with their 4th win in a row. It's the first time this season that Carolina has won 4 consecutive games. What were your biggest takeaways from this game?
Yeah, one, just the continued defensive effort that Carolina is giving. Since in the ACC right now, they're leading the conference in defense. I believe points per game, and then also field goals. I want to say they're first in the ACC. So the defensive effort is still there. Just to give it context, Cal only shot 5 free throws. So not only are you Carolina's defending, but they're keeping teams off of the free throw line. That's what stood out to me. Offensively, Jalen Washington, man. I know he only had 6 points, but somebody's he had a couple of mid-range. But I think where people are excited about him and where he's been improving is the defensive end and being somewhat of a rim protector. So those are initially those are the 2 things that stood out to me in the previous game.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about the NC State game, but you were at ESPN's headquarters watching that game. What was your reaction watching live, seeing not only Elliot Cado's dump off to Jalen Washington for the dunk, but for him to kind of come back on the other end and get a big time rejection there?
Yeah, well, it first started off with I was kind of out of my chair when Ian Jackson hit the 3 with 2 minutes left. And then Elliot comes down. I'm in there talking with the guys, who's going to get the ball? I'm like, RJ, people have been trying to take the ball out of his hand. Next thing you know, Elliot gets it. I'm holding my hair when he gets to that dead stop. But then he looked like Pat Mahomes, dumped that thing behind the head like that for the dunk. That's when I got up out of my seat and I was in front of the monitor. So then for also, Taylor, I know we're past that game, but we shouldn't have even gotten to the last possession because my man Dontrez Styles walked from the coaching box line all the way to half court. Where's the travel, ref? Where's the come on? Where's the travel? We shouldn't have gotten to Jalen Washington doing the block. But anyways, I was in front of the monitor and that block, I was hyped. And then we had to run to the desk. I'm like, get us on camera now. Get us on camera as fast as possible. So I was hyped the whole last 2 minutes.
Yeah, Jalen Washington and even Van Allen Lubin we'll talk about later. They've kind of turned a corner and they're starting to look a lot more game ready for this Carolina team when in the beginning of the season there was a lot of question marks at the center position, and I don't think it's up to maybe the standards of Carolina basketball, but it's a lot closer the past 2-3 games than where we were at the beginning of the season, where we were looking at the center position and just saying Carolina might not have any answers. But back to the defensive end, we talked about it last time. It seems like for this Carolina team, the magic number is 70. If Carolina can hold the team below 70, they're more than likely going to win. They've won 24 straight games when they do hold the team under 70. Obviously, Cal only scores 53 points. Cal's best player, Stojakovic, entered the game leading the ACC in scoring in conference play, 24.2 points per game. UNC held him to just 6 points, 3 of 13 shooting, really took him out of his rhythm the entire night. And when you look at the final score, when Cal's best player is having that kind of night, it does make a lot of sense. First time this season that Stojakovic was held below double figures. What did you see that Carolina did specifically, whether like matchup or scheme-wise, that led to Stojakovic having such an inefficient night, and then as a result, this Cal team not really being able to get in a rhythm?
I think so when we look at like how Carolina has gotten better defensively, I think they've just been better at the point of attack. Obviously they get into the paint, and Jalen Washington has, I want to say 12 blocks now in the last 3 games or something like that. But he, is rejecting shots, but I think Carolina has done a better job of staying in front of the ball and staying between the ball and the basket, which has allowed Jalen in some way to be able to come over, and guards are keeping their hands up, and now he's able to rim protect. So there's a difference when you can come over as a big and block, when the guard it's not obvious that you're coming over for a block. And just the guards have done a better job defending. But as a coach, this is what you want. You want that type of execution. Like, you can tell your players all you want about what we should be doing, how we should guard, this, that, and the third, but it's all about being able to take the scouting report and executing it. 6 points and 3 for 13. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, is that they were locked in on the scouting report and knew and cut off the head of the snake, and knew that Stojakovic was the one who was going to lead that team.
Yeah, to hear that he gets held to 6 points when he comes in averaging 24 in conference play. Carolina is going to win that game more often than not when you do get that kind of defensive performance. Seth Trimble, great on-ball defender. Drake Powell did great as a on-ball defender against Stojakovic. When you talk about guards being able to stay in front of people, I know we've moved past the NC State game, but one of the reasons why Jalen Washington was set up in a position for success against or to get that block in the last couple of seconds was because of how well Elliot Cado did at staying in front. And I think Elliot Cado is one of these players who has taken a bigger leap this season defensively, and being able to stay in front of people, when that was one of the biggest concerns when you're starting a backcourt of Cado and RJ Davis that's clearly undersized. But I think from my opinion, at least, Elliot Cado has kind of more than held his own on the defensive side of the ball this season, as Carolina's one of Carolina's better perimeter defenders. But I thought it was also interesting in this game where they talked about it in the post-game press conference. I believe it was Elliot Cado, where he was like, we watched a lot of tape from the SMU game, and we saw that we struggled to put this SMU team away. It seemed like they were able to carry that message over to this game, because they're up against Cal at halftime, and in the second half, they outscored Cal 40-24, really put that game out of hand within the first couple of minutes in that second half. What did you see from Carolina going from the first half to the second half, to where not only were they able to carry over what they were doing, but it seemed like as the game was going, the Carolina team was getting better?
Yeah, I just thought that you look at those other games, in particular the SMU game, and sometimes it's just the the natural way of like being up, you're up 39-29 at half, not blowing the team out, but you're at least up. And then as you go into the second half, that lead starts growing. And then all of a sudden you start getting, careless with the ball. You stop doing what got you to that point and got you to that big league. And I just saw them continue to put the pedal to the metal and make sure that Cal didn't get comfortable. We saw in that first half too, Cal was out hustling them on the offensive boards and even the 50-50 balls. And I thought in the second half, they did a better job of having that sense of urgency with offensive rebounding, getting those 50-50 balls. So you just have to stay with the foot on the pedal when you're in that stage of, okay, we're right there from blowing this team out. And they made the difference to where Cal eventually said, hey, this game is over with. We can't do anything. And that's where you want to get a team, is where they lose that hope of feeling like they can come back. And so Carolina just did a great job of just staying with it and continuing to finish out the game.
And Hubert Davis said that the key in that second half against California was Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, and Van Allen Lubin. I want to start with Trimble because it seems like you could look at the box score, but the box score will never tell you the full story with somebody like Seth Trimble. Like, I'm a huge Knicks fan, and I would kind of compare it to Josh Hart, where you watch Josh Hart, you watch Seth Trimble. Their impact on the game goes way beyond the box stats. Just winning plays, the hustle plays that you're talking about, the 50-50 balls. Yeah. Those are more like 80-20 when it comes to somebody like Seth Trimble and what he's able to do for this team. So how would you kind of assess the impact that Seth Trimble has on this team to people who maybe are just looking at it and seeing like, oh, he scores 12 points, he's 3 of 8 from the field, but what he does for this team, the parts of the game that might not show up in a box score?
Yeah, his defensive prowess kind of permeates through the team. And I think it's good to always have a guy, to your point, like a Josh Hart or Seth Trimble, someone who is good defensively, because it sets a standard for the team. And so when you're in that place of where the team isn't defending, or there's one particular guy that's not defending, now the standard is we need to defend like Seth is defending. And you need that every single day. And so that's why I think it's, with Seth going to the bench, hats off for him. And I don't know if this is something that will go on all season long. I mean, it's hard to see anything differently with how Ian has been playing, but Seth just changed the whole dynamic of the team defensively. And you have to have a guy like that on your team. And I just think it sets the standard and keeps each other guard where they're accountable for their defensive play.
Yeah, and not only does he bring it on the defensive side of the ball, but he's been one of Carolina's most consistent players at being able to get to the basket. He leads the team with 6 free throws. He goes 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Where have you seen him kind of develop his offensive game to where it seems like now there was that one instance in the Cal game where he just kept backing down until he kind of looked up and was right at the rim, was right there. But yeah. Where have you seen his development as somebody who, what he's going to bring night in and night out on the defensive end, but now he's starting to be able to be this guy who you can count on more on the offensive end?
Yeah, when you have a guy like Seth, obviously isn't like the star player or the guy you're going to when you need a basket or anything. He just operates really well within the game where the ball is all of a sudden in his hand and he can make something happen out of nothing by using that athleticism and that strength to be able to get to the basket. I mean, even on that shot that you were talking about, like, it was impressive, but what was most impressive was the fact that he was able to keep his balance and not travel. Like, you see a lot of people when they pull the chair, they travel. He was able to keep his balance and finish. Like the dude's athleticism is just off the charts. And obviously I played with his brother, so I can understand why in Tokoto. But I just think he plays within himself. Like he doesn't like there are a lot of guys who I think he realizes like he's not the best shooter. And he accepts that, but he plays to his strengths. Like a lot of guys will try to go outside of themselves and do stuff that they shouldn't be doing. Seth doesn't do that. He knows he's a defender, but he also knows he's a slasher, and he's able to get to the free throw line, but he also creates plays for others. And I think the one thing that has improved for him is now he's going to the basket with confidence and understanding like I'm getting here. I'm not getting here just trying to make something up. I'm getting here to score a basket. And if you don't stop me, I'm going to use my athleticism to finish over you. If I draw in the defense, I'm utilizing my teammates. So just the confidence and playing to his strengths is what he has done the best.
Another player playing with a ton of confidence right now, Ian Jackson, the star freshman. He leads the team in scoring, 20 points. He's 8 of 15 from the field. I believe it was a career high in rebounds too, with 7 on that end. You look at some of the stats and some of the numbers with what he's doing. He's scored 159 points the last 7 games, one shy of the UNC freshman scoring record over 7 consecutive games. Tyler Hansbrough scored 160 in 05-06. How do you kind of put into perspective what Ian Jackson has been from maybe the start of the season to where he's at now, to where it seems like he's the most consistent thing on this Carolina team?
Well, one, a freshman who is doing what he's doing, he has taken on the role of learning the game. You see the maturation from the beginning of the season where you kind of look like a deer in headlights to now it's like, how do we pull him off of the floor? We wish he just had unlimited oxygen because he just puts so much pressure on the defense. And then he's starting to buy in defensively, which is Seth Trimble is the standard. And he understands, and Coach Davis has had that open communication with him that you have a chance to be a great defender. So one, learning is what he has been doing. 2, I just think the talent is undeniable. Again, the point that I made, the pressure that he puts on the defense is just something that's different for Carolina that they don't have. Like, it's one thing having Seth, who is on the smaller end for a guard, putting pressure on the rim, but Ian Jackson is a tall guy with great length, and he goes to the basket and like sometimes it's hard for me because I'm trying to watch him, but he's going so fast to the rim, like shooting out of a cannon, to where I'm also looking at the defender. I'm like, how is the defender going to guard this? And then I look and like the defender is falling. The defender is falling back, and he's like up under the basket, making sure the ball is going in the rim. And I'm like, how is he standing upright right now? Like what he's doing is it's sort of a surprise, but like just his athleticism, his balance, and just what he brings to the table, and just putting pressure on the defense and not allowing them to have a playoff is something that he has added to this team, and what he's doing right now is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's a combination between the athleticism and your original point, the learning aspect, where it's been one of the things that Coach Davis has talked about every time he talks about Ian Jackson, where he has this willingness to want to be coached, and he's receptive to people teaching him, and he wants to keep learning more. And when a fan hears that, they might not really think anything of it, but having both been in locker room settings, what it's like to be around somebody who's like, hey man, please just listen to what they're teaching you,
yeah,
and stop just trying to do things like your own way, because you keep trying to do things your own way, it's not gonna lead to too many wins when
Yeah.
you think you know something better than this coaching staff that's kind of pointing you in the right direction. So how would you kind of describe like a willingness to want to be coached to the fans that really aren't in like locker room type settings?
Yeah, it's it's hard because you come in knowing what it is that got you to that point, and when a coach is holding you accountable to maybe learn something new or put more time and effort into something that you really haven't been doing, that's hard. But just listening to a call with Coach Davis said that like Ian Jackson would, he texts him and asks like, Coach, what can I be better at? And that's the sign of a great player, because to learn this game is not about the physicality. Yes, it's a part of the game, but mentally, when you can understand where your shots are going to come from or what you should be doing, um, hearing it straight out of the head coach's mouth, what you should be doing, and you take that and you apply it, like it's hard, but that's what is needed, because this is a sport where you have four other guys that you have to operate with, four other players that you have to operate with. And so how can I be the best that I can be within a team dynamic? And that's the one thing that has also stood out to me with him, is that he's not going out here like, I will take 8 for 15 every single night. He's not going out here like, being 3 for 15 or, 9 for 20. This dude is doing it in an efficient manner within the team dynamic. I think that's very impressive. But to your point, it's hard to be a guy that listens, but the coaches their jobs are to put you in the best situation to succeed. And sometimes, and more often than not, it's players being hard-headed and not listening.
Yeah. It's one thing for a coach to tell you to do something. It's another for that player to go out there and apply it. And sometimes it's not even like a player being like hard-headed or stubborn. It's just like sometimes when those bullets start flying, you're going to resort back to what you think is going to be best or what you're most comfortable to. Right. So I think with Ian Jackson and hearing how much praise Coach Davis gives him in terms of the reception of being coached and wanting to learn and kind of soaking it all in like a sponge is only a good thing for somebody like Ian Jackson, who already, we've talked about it, he brings all the athleticism that God could put in a person.
And he stretches the floor for Carolina as well, which is another added benefit of having him in the lineup.
A quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill for a game, you could visit Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street. And if not, no worries. You could go online to johnnytshirt.com. They constantly are adding new items. I'm on their website right now. A ton of great things. They have everything that the Carolina fan could possibly want. The hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, the hoodies, the sweatshirts, the zip-ups. You name it, they've got it. Great people, great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. All right, Joel, we kind of got into this good rhythm now where second half of the podcast, we're taking questions from fans on Instagram. We will not be talking about how far this team will go, even though that's it's always the most popular question. But this first question comes from Warren Channing on Instagram. When you're watching film, who has been your favorite player on the roster this season to watch?
That's a hard question, because I just think that just like RJ and the way he's been playing and it looking a lot differently, like I know from the to the naked eye, it's just like he's having a down season, but I honestly think that he has accepted the fact that teams are keeping all eyes on him, and he has done a great job of allowing his teammates to take an initiative to help him out, which has been very impressive. And Taylor, as you know, it is hard to do for a guy to go from being the ACC Player of the Year, having one of his best years, to looking at the scorecard and you look at Elliot, Cado 15, Ian Jackson 20, and Seth Trimble 12, and RJ Davis is fourth on that at 7 points. I mean, it's hard, so that's impressive. But the guy that I've been excited about is Ian Jackson.
Yeah.
I just like what he brings. When I look at the roster lineup, and Elliot, Seth, they really don't shoot the ball that well. You're looking at Cade Tyson not shooting the ball well. You look at, so what other guy steps up? Ian Jackson has changed the whole dynamic of the offense, and now you see this Carolina offense being able to operate with a lot more space.
Yeah, and I think you could also, to a lesser extent, just because of what Ian Jackson has kind of done as a freshman, kind of flies under the radar. But Drake Powell too, I think, has been a pretty fun watch this season for Carolina, and what he's added, shooting 40.9% from three, seems like one of Carolina's most reliable players from the perimeter. But on the topic of shooting, Carson 22 Harris asked, what have you noticed about Elliot Cado's shot and how it's coming together in comparison to maybe last year?
Yeah, I really don't see anything as far as technical wise with his shot. It's one of those things where you can go mentally, you can go into a shot and you could have, it's two ways. You can be very hesitant and you're like, I don't know if I should take this shot, but I'm wide open, so let me just go ahead and throw it up. And the two is I'm open, I'm taking this shot, and my goal is to make this shot. I've been putting in the work, I've been putting in the time, and if you ask me which one, I just think the mental side of it is what has improved. He understands that more often than not, guards are going to go under the screen, and now he's doing that one dribble right into a shot, and he's shooting it with confidence. Do you want him shooting a lot of those? Not really, because the hardest shot is, one of those shots off the dribble from the 3-point line. You want him to shoot some catch and shoots, but I think what has improved is just the confidence. Instead of being hesitant, going ahead and knowing that the team needs him to take those shots, and now he's just shooting it with a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, he's shooting 27.7% from three this season. Doesn't really sound all that impressive until you start comparing it to last season, where it was at 18.9. And with his ability to get downhill, he just has to be somewhat respectable from three.
That's it.
To just give defenses another thing to think about with what he adds as a playmaker. And I think we saw it way more at times last year, where teams are just sagging back and just sitting basically in the paint waiting for him, because they're like, hey, we know you have no chance to make that shot. And when he was shooting some of them, it looked like that, to your point about the confidence, where this year there does seem more confidence in being able to step into a shot. But yeah. He's definitely gotten it to a lot more of a respectable level this season, to at least be a threat from the 3-point line. All right, let's take a quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Congruity. Congruity is the leading provider for Tar Heel business owners, payroll, HR, and employee benefit needs. Inside Carolina listeners can get a free payroll and HR assessment by emailing Matt at Congruity. Email is matt@congruityhr.com. That email again is matt@congruityhr.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. The final question tonight comes from L Barnes 127. This is now, we're taking off the Carolina hat, and I want you to put on the ACC Network analyst hat.
All right.
how big is the gap from what you've seen between Duke and then the rest of the ACC where Carolina figures to be?
Oh man, yeah, this Duke team is very, very impressive. Um, I think the gap is pretty big. Um, because the team that's in second place right now in Louisville, I know it was earlier and Louisville has gotten better since then, but they gave them the work too. So I don't remember exactly what that score was for that game, but that's the second team. That's the second team in the ACC. The reason why Duke is the tallest team in the country, they can guard 1 through 5. Um, like it's hard. What's been impressive to me is that it's hard to get guys in high school to share the ball. And these dudes are like the best in the country coming in as freshmen with the holdovers and the older transfers. And they share the ball better than any team that I've seen this year in the country. And that just makes them very dynamic. They got shooters, they got slashers, they got two guys that if you go into the paint with any type of weak stuff, they're throwing it to the second row. And you got to go out to the parking lot and get the ball. I mean, it's just they're hard. I compare it to like the teams I used to play with Florida State, where I felt like there were 7 guys on the floor. Like that's what it looks like with Duke. So on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively, they're just head, shoulders, and I would even throw in the legs above everybody in the conference right now. And that's hard for me to say. I had to pull that out, but it's hard for me to say. But I see basketball, and my job is to be honest, and that's my honest opinion of Duke.
Yeah, besides their game against Notre Dame so far in conference play, they have been beating the brakes off teams. And you're kind of looking at the remainder of their schedule where midway through January now, Duke is the only ACC team ranked in the top 25. They're probably going to be a double-digit favorite in just about every game remaining outside of the Carolina games. You would assume just out of respect for the rivalry and people always thinking that you could kind of throw out the records when Carolina and Duke play. But yeah, I was watching the Miami game, and I know everything that's kind of happened with this Miami team. Larinaga steps down after they lose to Mount St. Mary's. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I started talking myself into like, the score's like 9-8 early. I'm like, maybe this Miami team can kind of hang around. I think I went to like cook dinner and I came back and it was like a 35-point game. I was like, okay, I could go to sleep now.
I still remember. I actually remember that. Yeah, it was 8-9, and then all of a sudden the score was 40 to 17, and it's like, all right, well, I can change that.
We will see how the ACC plays out this season and more. Carolina back in action this Saturday. Another game in the Smith Center from Chapel Hill. 2:15 tip against Stanford. Continuing the classic ACC matchups with Stanford making the trip to Chapel Hill. Tip off 2:15 on the CW. We will be back next week to break it all down, the Stanford game, the Wake Forest game. Joel, man, appreciate the time as always and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Yes, sir. Go Heels.